All right, and we are live. Let's kick us off with a little bit of lasers.
Love it.
All right. Hi,
Incredible
everyone.
intro.
Oh, sorry.
No, I said that's an incredible intro.
I need that.
Right? You know, add a little spice on this Tuesday morning. So happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to the panel. My name is Harsh Carmarker. I lead one of the solutions teams here at Tealium, and I am joined by two rock star voices in the customer data space. We've got Natalie and David from the Trade Desk and Snowflake, respectively, and I'll have each of you introduce yourselves with a little more detail. Natalie, why don't you kick us off?
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie Kansteiner. I'm the Director of Ecosystems for the Trade Desk. See myself as handling all platforms that are external of ours. So I get the privilege of hanging out with peeps like David Wells from Snowflake, as well as Tealium.
That's great. And I'm David. So I'm an industry principal on the media and advertising team at Snowflake. My purview is specifically adtech and martech, which is inclusive of a lot. So things like data, hygiene, identity, as well as activation platforms like the Trade Desk, which one of the great pleasures of my job is to spend time with Natalie. And then also CDPs. So I get to work with the Tealium team on solutions that we bring to market together for large marketers. And I just want to say I appreciate the time and the ability to participate in this one. I'm really looking forward to it.
Very much the same.
Nice. We always love the opportunity to bring more organizations into the conversation that exist within that customer data landscape. Because I think one of the things you see here is that it's no longer a single platform that's handling any of the end-to-end. There's always a multi-vendor landscape. So today we're going to be talking just in general about customer data, but really thinking about how people want to handle customer data differently in light of changes that are happening in the consumer journey, the tech landscape, and a lot of the regulatory environments. So I think just kicking off with the consumer journey, for both of you, and I guess we'll start with David, how have you seen the customer journey evolve in recent years?
Yeah, it's a terrific question. I think it's gotten more timely, right? So I think once upon a time, several years ago, we talked about people-based marketing and like whether you're operating in paid media or owned media, actually catering a message to an audience. And what I think we've seen more and more of is moment-based marketing. Whether you're talking about paid media or owned media, how do you not only target that audience, but you target them in that moment of their lives? Like we often like to say, you know, David on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Princeton is not the same David as, you know, a Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm a very different person just because during the week, you know, I'm working, I'm doing whatever I do at Snowflake. And then on the weekend, I'm with my wife and my 3-year-old daughter. So the ability to leverage data, actually, whether owned media or paid media data and inputs to personalize that message and where an individual is more receptive to that message and to make it more catered to that moment, that's really what's powerful. And what's powerful is that partners like Tealium and like Trade Desk are actually enabling that on Snowflake where the marketer's data already lives. Does that help?
Absolutely.
It does. I bet I could build on that.
Please.
Please.
And based off everything you just said there, I think this also reiterates the importance of omnichannel. So if we think about how much noise we experience in one day, is like even driving to work, the radio, the digital out of home, we are on our phones, our computers, our TVs, so many different ways in order for messages to be sent to the consumer. But it's important for us to hit them in the moment that actually matters, like you mentioned, but also it's not the same device at all times. So ensuring that like while we're watching Disney.com, we're also sending the messages on their phone, and understanding that journey and what resonates the most with that consumer does matter. And I think that's where our three platforms come together really strongly in order to drive that consumer segmentation and also delivery of that omni-channel, but also delivering it back so that we understand how did we do. So Yes, more important than ever.
Yeah, I think, we see a very similar perspective. It's about acting in that moment. And, like both of you kind of implied, context is king. My interaction in each of those channels ends up being really different. Like the way I have a way shorter attention span when I'm on my phone versus if I'm really sitting down at my laptop to do research, or, depending if I'm actually at a physical location and flipping through to just check something on my phone. That's also different versus waiting for a bus or waiting to pick up the kid at school. So we're really seeing a big shift in the channel at the moment mattering, but also just that, in general, wallets are really being impacted right now. So you're seeing a lot of what would have been impulse purchases becoming considered purchases. And so when you act in the moment, you can often connect with a feeling that really can change behavior. And so we're really seeing that push to how can I make this relevant right now?
I think that's a great point. I would also say, the wallets of marketers are also, they want to do more with less to some degree, right? So, if you're able to leverage more inputs via owned media and paid media and sort of personalize in a more efficient and effective way versus just inundating with messaging that is not hitting the mark, that's really powerful for marketers too on our platform. When we talk to them about partners like Tealium and Trade Desk and what they're able to do with Snowflake at the center as the foundational layer where their customer data lives, it really, really resonates because they not only want to respect the boundaries of their relationship with the customer and interact with them in such a way that is respectful and not invasive. They also want to do it efficiently, right? They want to make that dollar sort of go farther. And so I totally agree with you. I think it's an excellent point. And I think your two platforms coming together on Snow provides that to large marketers.
And Harsh, I think this states the importance of AI. I think it's important to use the technology that the platforms are bringing forward in order to drive those efficiencies. And so I think I've stated this some in other arenas too, but like AI is your co-pilot. It's going to help you be more efficient. Obviously, a lot of decisions we generally make are human-based, emotional-based, but at the same time using AI as a way to ensure that you're reaching the consumer at the right time, the right place, the right price, is only going to make you better and less emotionally judging on the campaign as well. Obviously, both are important, but at the same time, AI can only make that more efficient. And as we're heading into the political season, probably really important.
Oh, yes. So, David, do you have any thoughts on where you're seeing AI and ML impact the customer journey, and especially, given the platform that you work with?
Sure.
I imagine you have a lot of opinions there.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two ways we see application of AI on Snowflake. Well, let's just say there are a lot, but we'll distill it down to two. One is automation of tasks. So think about all of the wealth of information that you can have through, say, paid media metadata when you use a partner like the Trade Desk, and you can have access to REDs and the ability to parse all of that data, as well as some of the curated site activity that would happen through Tealium that's actually streamed into your account in a real efficient, fast manner. What marketers are doing is they're using AI to actually parse that owned media and paid media metadata to decision in a more timely manner and with granular level insights. So think about it this way. I can have a real-time feed of my ad log metadata. I can see if it drove a person actually to my owned media and what their interaction was, whether they looked at different product pages or what that journey was, if it led to the outcome. And then I can parse that with AI through native applications. And then I can very seamlessly maybe curate a segment to suppress because it took the outcome that I wanted. Or I can maybe politely retarget them across the Trade Desk in a gentle way that reminds them that they left something in their cart. The other thing that I would say is accessibility is a tremendous use case. So like with Snow Cortex, which is our Gen AI product, what some partners are doing is they're leveraging that or packaging that with native applications that allows marketers to actually talk to their data. So what you can do is, if you're non-technical like myself, I don't write code, you can actually have a native application where someone can write a very simple language prompt that will execute a SQL query under the hood that will in turn visualize or segment or activate a segment across the destination. And so that accessibility to non-technical personas on a technical platform or historically technical platform like Snowflake is really, really powerful. Snowflake is no longer just a platform on which CTOs operate. It's now more CMOs coming and leveraging that AI to render services.
That's really cool. Can selfish play, can clients pull, can people with applications on your platform pull Cortex into it to then drive the functionality in their apps? Whoa, that's neat.
That's right.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we're seeing a lot of that in AI where, just in general, there's a ton of buzz about how every chatbot, every interaction is going to be AI driven with LLMs. But where we're seeing it actually make the most impact for the organizations we're working with is making higher quality decisions faster internally and making those decisions change the customer interaction. So exactly what you were saying. And what I love about having both of you on the call is, when we think about a Tealium perspective, it's really centered around first party data as the primary set of interactions. And we love that context on owned media, owned sites. But just as you were saying, when you talk suppression, when you talk about the rest of the customer experience, your interaction with your customer isn't only on your properties. So being able to pull in those logs and then marry that with that real-time context, that durable third-party ID, means that you can train your models that much faster. So you don't have a model that drifts in learning across big shifts like a rate cut. You can get those insights faster and drive those outcomes so much faster. And it may not be the big buzzy, hey, there's an LLM that's going to take over all your customer service reps, but it's really driving different experiences for customers and better experiences for marketers.
Totally agree. And that's ultimately the goal, right? AI for AI's sake is not as powerful to me as what ultimately leads to a stronger customer experience. Like that is the real power there.
I think that also states the importance of first party data and AI too, obviously bringing in your best people. And it actually explains why we hang out with Tealium, why we hang out with Snowflake is customers like best data resides within your platforms. And we want that to come in as a signal to drive better outcomes in the trade desk. We use first party data as the signal for better bidding. So how can we ensure that we're reaching people that look the most like you? And obviously using that first party data as a bidding signal will only make it better. So obviously that kind of states the importance of all of us coming together today.
Here, I thought you were hanging out with me for my charming personality, but it's really...
I mean that too.
I'm teasing.
It doesn't hurt, right?
It does help that you are also...
No, I'm teasing. I'm fishing for compliments, right?
So I think that actually lines up with the next question really well, which is we're talking a lot about first party data and what we know about customers and using that to drive behavior. But one of the big trends we're seeing in the marketplace overall is a real shift to a consumer focus on privacy and trust, as well as a regulatory environment that's supporting it. And that is going to have real impact on ad tech measurement and personalization in general. Yep. So Natalie, I'll start with you on that because we tend to be very ad centric. How are you seeing that impact measurement and just ad tech evolution in general?
Yeah. This might be the right time to bring up Google. So obviously
right.
A lot has changed in the last 2 months with now the shift where Google says, okay, cookies aren't going to go away. But it is going to go away eventually on the front of like privacy is going to force the hand. In addition to that, I think if we look back, like they're like, okay, privacy sandbox, not the answer. Probably a better decision is putting the privacy choice on the consumer so then they can make the decision themselves versus Google dictating what that looks like. So obviously, I mean, I empower everybody to really reflect on what is going to be the best for your measurement. Obvious answer is moving to durable identifiers like UID2 and ramp ID, and using IDs that are going to persist, because Google's plan will likely fall similar in line with like Apple as an example, where they're putting the decision on the consumer, and thus the value of the cookie will slowly deprecate. So with that, obviously moving to a plan where you will be able to interact with your consumers in the same personalized journey as what we just talked about in the previous questions is key to the future, and thinking about what is your identity strategy, what are the platforms that are going to help me enable that so I can complete the entire customer journey.
Yeah, I think all of that is, it's a terrific point of view. What I would say to the audience members, many of whom are maybe marketers, is that, you know, I think more and more what we hear is that they want platforms that deliver services, whether you're a CDP that powers personalization or you're a market leading DSP that powers activation. They want those services to come where their data lives. And oftentimes it's on Snowflake, right? So we're seeing a mass migration of marketers who are landing their first party data on Snowflake. And so they want these world-class ad tech and MarTech solutions to render services where their data lives, right? And so we are incredibly appreciative of the Tealium and Trade Desk partnership, because they've lived up to that ask of large marketers. If I want, you know, site activity landed or streamed through Snowflake streaming directly into my Snowflake account, Tealium accomplishes that, whether you're talking about events or audiences. If I want my paid media metadata actually streamed into my Snowflake account, which I then marry with that owned media activity, I can do that. If I want to activate a curated audience through Tealium across Trade Desk, I can actually do that. And so we're incredibly appreciative that you've leaned into the partnership. It's answering the call that marketers have made, which is, I'm centralizing on Snow. I want no data movement. I want you to bring your solutions to this platform where I've made this investment. And I want you to unlock more efficiencies in my ad tech, MarTech stack that pay dividends on my owned media as well as my paid media, if that helps.
You just stated exactly why we put product within Snowflake and why we have product within Tealium. It's because we also saw the same vision where it's like, we need to go to the data, not force clients to bring the data to us in order to engage with the Trade Desk. So all your points definitely resonated with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And, you know, certainly from our perspective, as we saw the shift in privacy, one of the things that I think were historically a challenge with a lot of personalization is by the time people were looking at the data they were personalized, they'd lost a lot of those consent signals. So one of the biggest things that we saw was the need to not just capture that consent, but propagate it through the entire chain as the relevant metadata, down to what, if I'm a customer, I want to control what I'm going to use that data for. Now, you know, to your previous point, there's a lot of consumer desire to own it. But then once they own it, there's a lot of willingness to give additional data for a better experience. So we're also seeing things like zero-party data, and that's not just surveys, but it's as you're browsing, just helping to give some breadcrumbs so the company you interact with knows how to treat you better. And then sharing that all the way through to the analytics that are going to inform the models for the people whom you may not know as well.
Right.
So it's making sure that you're honoring privacy, which fundamentally is just, hey, customer data is different because there's a person on the other side who should have a say in how that data is used. Making sure you capture that, honor it, but are also becoming smarter about how you deal with them and all of your customers based on some of that data.
I think that's a tremendous point. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, I want to limit data movement to operate within the letter of the law. It's another thing to say, no, I don't only want to operate within the letter of the law. I want to interact with my consumers on their terms in the way that they want. And that's the right thing to do. And, you know, your two companies are allowing that with large marketers who are on Snow. And again, that's part of the reason we're so appreciative of the partnership.
I think this also explains the rise of data providers where they are directly paying the consumer for utilization of their data as well, which is a very interesting model. I look forward to seeing where that goes, but very Web3 is a good way to put it. Right. Gotta highlight trends. I actually look forward to seeing how we can give more of that power to the consumer and how their data is used in what form. It's a totally different shift. And so obviously there's still a lot of growth to happen in that arena, but interested to see where it goes.
And I think a lot of organizations, kind of put up that modal for consent and cookies almost as a throwaway to get that checkbox letter of the law, as you were saying, like, okay, I'm doing this, it's safe.
Yep.
But as we talked about the modern customer journey, people actually care a lot about trust and responsibility of whom they're doing business with. And I think we are going to see a shift to that actually being a differentiator and that dialogue becoming more of a dialogue than a checkbox about how I want to interact with you as a brand, right? I don't necessarily want every provider knowing, my sleep data, but it might be relevant for, if I'm looking for a different workout, it might be relevant to different providers. So how we choose to distribute that data and interact with brands, I think is going to really change as you see more nuance there. And that is one of the things I really love about this partnership, because we're really talking with, durable identities, the ability to look across partnerships, third parties, the clean room conversation comes up right away. But then being able to marry that with the real-time interaction data we see. And actually from Hari, I saw a question whether Tealium is used for only conversion events. It's absolutely for awareness and consideration events like site visits. Marrying that third-party data or that behavioral data on paid media with all of your own sites and what people are doing there to make those smarter, better informed decisions. So yeah, Hari, any event generated on a property you own, you can capture with an SDK, with tags, with first-party server side. You can also capture some of that zero-party data and use that to marry it within Snowflake and start to layer some of those intent models, consideration models, but also just preference models. What might someone want to see in 2 clicks instead of 5 navigating through my menu?
That's right. And we obviously work in the industry, and sometimes I'll maybe authenticate on, an owned media site, and I'll watch, that marketer attempt to interact with me across various channels. And I'll just think to myself, as someone who lives in the space, like, this is not efficient. They haven't learned that David in this moment is not open to this message. And I always wonder if it's the person who works in the tech sector, or is it, actually, am I right about that? And then I'll talk to my wife, who obviously, lives in our household and is not working in tech. And she'll say, like, I had this experience. I was going to purchase X, Y, and Z. And now I feel like I'm seeing ads all over the place on my, when I stream, on my phone, on my desktop. And so I think that individual consumers are actually getting savvier. They're more cognizant of when maybe that interaction with them via a marketer is not on their terms. And so I think your point is a terrific one, which is that you need to use data to power a model, whether it's a known customer or actually a new prospect, that will drive an interaction that is on their terms, that's going to lead to the outcome that they want as well as what you want. And so that's what we're trying to do here with our partnership, is really provide that value, merging sort of the data asset that Tealium can make available on Snowflake, as well as leveraging the Trade Desk as a platform, whether it's activating or pulling in ad log metadata, so that marketers are interacting with those consumers in a way that they want, that is leading to the outcomes that we all want. That helps.
No, that's a really nice summarizing point.
Yeah. I was like, I have nothing to add to that. That was beautiful.
I know. I usually like to come in with a little bit of a summary, and it's like, nice. Checking it off for us.
Well, now you know I'm a bit long-winded. So Anyway.
So one of the things I did want to kind of hop back to is the cookie, because, you know, there was all this fanfare, the cookie is crumbling, and then it's, you know, hang on, actually, that's how we make our money. Maybe a little later, we'll talk about it. But I think what we're seeing from our customers is a lot of their users, especially if it's a mobile first interaction, you know, 60% of American phone users are on the iPhone. That signal loss has already happened. So from your customer base and from the organizations you deal with, are you seeing that people have already started to take into account the loss of those third-party signal?
Yep. If they haven't already, most have already thought about that. I would say, like, as an example, 80% of the trade desk is roughly cookieless. And so with that, obviously the inventory is fully focused on durable, like, person known identifiers in order for you to interact that way. Also know that obviously I see Google as like a channel. Like, I wouldn't tell a client to go completely away from it. Like, Google has its key features and like search that are part of, you know, the overall omnichannel journey. At the same time, like, going back to our original question around customer journey and ensuring that you understand like how you're interacting with your consumers. Are you driving ROI? Ensuring you're partnering with groups that will help you drive that and on a methodology that is aligned with your business. So I think a lot about like, okay, is just focusing to that one channel actually going to help me understand that and ensure I'm communicating with my clients when it's at the right time, right place, and ensuring I'm getting that understanding back from my platforms too. And I think that's where, again, our partnership makes a ton of sense, because we do have those pipes to enable that full journey and understanding so that we can help our clients understand how they're interacting with their clients.
Yeah.
Dave, would you add to that?
I know it's hard to follow that statement. I think that's very well said. I mean, I think the Google sort of announcement around, hey, cookies are not going away. I think people had already said, like, no, I've already worked on my strategy so that I'm not dependent on third-party cookies, and like I'm going to stick with that. Is an important one. Like they already assumed that cookies were going away, and they didn't want to be beholden to any third-party technology. And I would add to that like, you know, with your respective platforms, there are also, you know, ways to target in an impactful way that are not even ID based, right? So context, right? So what can you do with owned media and site activity and paid media and interaction with an ad and the context in which it was served that led to an outcome to churn, you know, models or more contextual targeting, particularly in parts of the world where identity is immature. And like, that's something that's possible with the Trade Desk and Tealium. And we think that's terrific, right?
Clients hired entire teams to solve for this. So it's like there is no turning back, where it's like, you know what, we are going to solve this, to David's point. Like, we're going to solve it and we're going to make a plan for it, because again, we don't want to be beholden to anybody determining how we interact with our customers.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we're seeing is also everybody knows there's going to be a regulatory shift anyway on a lot of this. So the Google shift is one thing, but you can read the tea leaves. You know, we've got our friends in EMEA who tend to be a little more aggressive on, you know, the individual rights and privacy, but consumer intent is going to have a lot of people opting out, period. Oh, and we had two things come through. We had a question and a comment. Miles Jordan from Hisense just said that he's found the conversation really insightful, which is always nice. Smiles.
I just responded. I wish this application had emojis.
Yeah.
Right? And we've also gotten a question come in. What are some common pitfalls with customer data projects that you're seeing with your customers? And are there some real world successes you could highlight? So I don't know, David, Natalie, did either of you want to jump in there?
I will. Well, unless Miss Natalie would like to speak first, since I
would love to add to your comments.
Okay. I think oftentimes when marketers land their first party data on Snow, they try to do it all at once, right? They want to, they want to solve all problems with owned media and paid media across all ends of the spectrum immediately. And it's sort of analysis paralysis on, okay, how do I do this, that, and the other? And what we would say is, well, you need to identify a problem, and then you need to tackle that problem, and then we'll work on the other problems together. Like, what is most compelling? What is going to drive the greatest outcomes to your business, as well as the greatest outcomes to your consumers in the way that they interact with you? So, like, if you're using Tealium and Trade Desk today, how could you stream data out of Tealium and into your Snowflake account, and then use the integration that we have with Trade Desk today to simply activate that or deposit that in your seat to use that data to qualify who sees an ad or to suppress? And like, it's a very easy near-term solution that we can stand up that will pay dividends to you as a marketer, as well as to the consumer and the way they interact with you as a marketer. And similarly, like, how can you merge all of that owned media site activity through Tealium in your Snowflake account, as well as the paid media metadata, to understand, okay, here's where I sort of communicated with my consumers in paid media, and here are the incremental gains it drove in terms of site visits and made my consumers aware of the products and services that I make available. Again, that's something that's achievable with very little lift. So we say, start somewhere that's achievable, and let's help you solve that problem so that it pays dividends. And then we'll work on the other things together.
I think coming in with, what is the question you want to answer? What is the business use case, the question? Because oftentimes I think people think they want everything under the moon, but then they haven't started with, well, what are we actually trying to answer? Like, what do we want to answer? I think that's the pitfall we run into the most, because, I mean, Red's exposure logs are massive. There's tons of metadata and interesting information in there, but is it all useful? Is it going to help me answer my use case question? So I think that's where it's like, anytime a client asks us for this, that's the first thing we start with, where it's like, okay, help us understand what you're trying to answer. What's your question? Because we want to ensure it matches what you're trying to do too. Because again, like, clients don't need all the information under the moon that we are willing to provide. Let's make sure we focus it to what you're trying to do.
Great point.
Absolutely. That's, it's funny. I was actually going to say basically the same thing. There's so much data out there. If you don't know the problem you're going to solve, the signal to noise ratio becomes an issue, because, I think we all saw this in the enterprise data warehouse wave back in the early 2000s, where it's, oh, we need all the data, and then we're going to make really good decisions. But you've got haystacks of haystacks looking for needles. Whereas if you start with the idea of what are the questions we're trying to answer, the decisions we're trying to make, and problems we're trying to solve, then looking at that data first, you can also build muscles of how you decision, how you roll out campaigns, how you prioritize media spend with those specific tactical questions, then layer on the original data sets. The other thing that we're seeing from our customers, I love those reactions.
Yeah, I know, that's a good one, right?
Let's pretend it's the crowd. The crowd is giving you.
Right? And I think the other thing we're seeing in some of our customers who are really leaning into AI and ML is it helps with the feature identification process. If you're already collecting data that you know is related to a specific journey or a specific problem you're solving, it's easier to start there with your model and then layer on the additional sources rather than dropping in front of a data scientist a giant pile of stuff saying, tell me all the things.
Right.
Agree.
So we did also have a couple more questions come in from Gabo. There's a question: in Africa, we're seeing more and more people use Safari, which is impacting the third-party cookie, and budgets are going towards first-party targeting. Wanted to know from us at Tealium innovations that we have in development to address those challenges. And we've actually really leaned into server side as well as client side and focused on collecting those first-party signals you're allowed to collect. and being able to use those to work to then push the data into platforms, obviously Snowflake, where you can do deeper analysis, and then use the durable IDs that aren't necessarily PII or cookie reliant to combine those things. Now, another follow-on question from Gabo that I think would be great for you, Natalie, is, well, also, does the cookie deprecation mean that attribution modeling on your DSPs will be affected and broken?
Great. I mean, we all can say that attribution modeling in general is challenging from just a like overall channel perspective. But I think this is why identifiers like Unified ID 2.0 have been created. For one, because although it's been started by the Trade Desk and represented by it, we don't own it. We want other DSPs, we want other groups to have a way to interact on the open internet and not be controlled by a third-party entity in order to do so. So today, actually, there's probably 30 plus other DSPs that have Unified ID as one of their ID sets so that they can interact and also exchange on that. So sending UIDs in and bringing UIDs out. So then you don't have to send any sort of PII feature out of your platform. So we're looking to solve that, obviously, with the industry and how we can continually make that more feasible and easy for groups like Adform, because I know he's from Adform. So yeah, know that obviously reach out to your Trade Desk person. We're happy to help you get started on that. But either way, that's why it was started, just to make it better for the industry.
Yeah, and it has, right? I mean, kudos to the Trade Desk to have that novel addressability as well as attribution solution and the ability to keep the open internet open and have, like, you know, a really strong solution that can power that addressability as well as that attribution across a wide swath of, you know, premium inventory sources. It's really great.
And I think it also just creates the opportunity for customers to take back control of their audiences. So much third-party attribution was just sort of relying on the various paid media channels, and having, you know, a little bit of an idea of who your customer is internally, that first-party data, which campaign you may have activated for them across those channels, and then being able to use those durable IDs to actually marry that with logs. You now own the ability to match that up within your Snowflake platform, within your analytical platform.
We didn't even buy like clean rooms yet, which we probably should talk about even that. Like, I know his question was focused around cookies, but at the same time, like, groups like Snowflake are trying to make it easier for clients to get to that attribution modeling by bringing down the walls and making clean rooms more accessible, especially where the data already resides. So, like, how can we enable your data from Tealium to make it into a clean room, especially if you want to measure with a party that maybe has sensitive data or your data is in a walled garden, as an example. So although not cookie focused, it's still an important aspect of where the industry is going.
Yeah, and I'd actually really like to lean into the clean room conversation. You know, with Tealium, we're seeing a lot of growth in highly regulated industries. So specifically in healthcare and financial services, where your health relationship is not limited to a single provider, right? You have data that might be spread across. And while there are marketing conversations, there's also just ongoing communication conversations about things like chronic care. You know, what happens when someone moves? What happens if they're looking for a dialysis provider? And I think, you know, the ability to have things like durable IDs where you can work with partner groups to just streamline communications is something we don't talk about enough. I don't know, David or Natalie, did either of you have a perspective on that?
I could talk about one of our clients.
Please.
I won't talk directly about who it is. It's a bank, but they don't have permission to be able to directly use the data in a marketing fashion, but they want to use it as a signal. And so what they do is use Snowflake clean rooms as a way to pull that information in and pull in their exposure logs as well, in order to use it as a signal, but not directly use it, because obviously privacy now once again comes into effect where they just don't have permission to use it for purpose. And so using exposure logs still as a signal to then push that information back to continue marketing in a fashion that at least is one step closer to being personalized. So that's just an example of like a great way to use a clean room, I think.
Yeah, it's a terrific example. I mean, the whole, I think, trajectory of Snowflake was around this idea of a shared data architecture, right? Where you can have data actually in Snow and you can have multiple parties collaborate on that data without movement, whether that's within your own org or it's, you know, a marketer and a partner. A data clean room is an advanced case of like data sharing or that shared data architecture where disparate, you know, data types are actually brought together with identity in the middle, and it can extrapolate value, and it's safeguarding the privacy or the sensitivity of that individual information. And so that's why we've seen like incredible adoption of Snowflake data clean rooms and so much interest when we talk to partners, is that it, to Natalie's point, which I think is a terrific one, it provides value in the use of data to provide direction without violating any kind of privacy. And that's really what we all want, right? Is like, we're just trying to power a stronger experience and do so within the guardrails of the letter of the law, as well as the way that that individual consumer wants me to interact with them.
Exactly. I know if I've told two organizations I work with, or, you know, even worse, two different sides of the same organization I work with that have a firewall between them, like in financial services, right? Or insurance, that I want you to personalize my offerings and interaction. I want you to do that without me having to tell you, hey, by the way, I have this other account. You don't need to collect all that data from me again. Or, hey, why are you sending me an offer for something I already have? You should know that. And there's just also a huge value to being able to use that durable ID, not just from an advertising or marketing purpose, but just from a shared identifier so that you can accelerate understanding who's given permission for those multi-party conversations.
Agree. Think about even like healthcare, HIPAA. HIPAA changes what, every 6 months, I feel like at this point. So it's like, how do we maintain personalization without violating something that might change again in the next? I mean, it's the same with all privacy rules. Like a new state law comes out every 6 months. So I think even more useful for healthcare is how can I use clean rooms to understand all the health needs of my consumers without sending them a diabetes ad outright, because obviously then we're violating all rules. Just thinking about how we can use things as signals, not more than that, obviously. Again, just thinking in the lens of the client.
Exactly. There's personalization that doesn't have to be a transactional interaction. And things like exposure logs are just another signal. And I think this gets to another question that came up, is around who should own customer data within the enterprise. And what we're seeing is that it's really tough to have a single owner. There used to be this perspective, oh, marketers own the customer, and then it's, well, our data science team owns all data, or compliance needs to have a hand in it, to really this notion that you need to have some cross-functional ownership of what that data is used for. And it's not just transactional. It's not just marketing. It's about that end-to-end journey.
I think you bring up a really good point, and I feel like David and I talk about this all the time, is the importance of adtech and martech client groups merging together and working together to drive a better outcome in future. Because just like what you said, like there are teams that, mine the data and understand the data, but it's not fully maybe sometimes being used for a marketing purpose, but it will only make marketing better and more efficient and smarter. So it's why we work with groups such as all of you, and especially with the warehouses, where particularly the persona that's handling Snowflake might be more of the analyst or engineer but those people are important in order to drive the marketing function for sure. So with time, we will grow together and it will happen.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, if there's a Snowflake bumper sticker, it's that we're trying to break apart silos. And that can include, the various parts of an adtech martech stack within a large marketer. Or it can include just the silos that might operate within that marketer's org. And oftentimes, when we talk about clean rooms or we just talk about marketing generally, it's part of the effort is to have those disparate teams actually talk together and work together on Snowflake and work together with the various parts of their stack, like you two find people. And so that's really the opportunity is like, converge your stack on Snowflake, but also converge your team so they're working together and they all have a stake and they're all, aware of what we're accomplishing together and we're doing it to ultimately serve our customer.
And I think a couple of the questions that came up earlier, one around common pitfalls organizations make. And David, your comment earlier about marketing budgets being squeezed. We've all, I think, gone into an organization, worked with a customer where each channel team operated like a little warring fief with each other channel, where, the paid team versus the owned team versus CX, we're all fighting for the same marketing dollars and going down different paths when it's really all the same customer experience. And flipping it from the channel view to the experience view, especially because I might start a conversation on my phone and then go to the website, I think is a real opportunity for, marketers and data teams in general to break some of those disjointed experiences and produce a better end customer feel.
Totally agree. Well said.
All right, so we are about at time. I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to layer on any closing thoughts. Natalie, did you have anything you wanted to wrap us with?
Gosh, an all-encompassing thought on an epic triad relationship here. There's my emphasis point, the triad relationship. I honestly, obviously we talked a ton about clients merging just right before this, about clients merging their adtech, martech groups to be able to work more cohesively together. I also think that's part of the industry motive too, of us all coming together to drive better outcomes for our clients is the answer to the future of being able to work with the tech you want, be it Snowflake, be it Tealium, be it all of them together to be able to drive segmentation to the trade desk is the answer. We want you to be able to use the tech and the methodology that makes sense for your business. And so I am actually very excited to continue growing our partnerships and making these things really come to life for clients.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly well said. The one thing that I would say is, we often tell client/partners or client marketers, the only way that Snowflake is successful is if we make you successful. And a lot of this seems, I think, daunting at times. Like, wait a minute, I'm going to, eviscerate these silos on Snowflake within my own org, or I'm going to pull together these disparate stack solutions on Snowflake. And it's a little overwhelming at times. I mean, I think, we all live it day in and day out. And so we understand the vision. And to the person that maybe is not in the front row day in and day out, it might seem overwhelming. But what I would say is, we're here to help. And when I say we, I would not only say Snowflake, I would also say Tealium and Trade Desk. We have a tremendously, I'd say, healthy relationship. And that's part of the reason we're on a webinar today. And we want to solve those problems. So please approach us. The only way that I'm successful personally is if I make Tealium successful, if I make Trade Desk successful, as well as the marketers who use those technologies on Snowflake successful. So we have a vested interest. And if you have questions, come talk to us. That's our job. We're here to help you.
I love that because it really is an ecosystem conversation. One team can't solve any of these problems or address any of these use cases in a vacuum.
Yes.
Right. It spans what's going on in your paid team, what's going on in your own properties, how you bring the data together from other signals and other teams within the customer organizations, like customer care, billing, service, and support. That data has to come together, and that informs the whole life cycle. I really love that triad view.
And my sales team does not speak Snowflake or Tealium, but man, when we all come together, we speak each other's world very well together. And so I think that's the answer too, of just bringing teams together and having, I empower clients to like empower us to all work together as well. Like have your team say, hey, I really feel like we should all just connect and make sure you guys are all communicating and coming up with a group plan, because I want you all to be together. So.
And you do it very well.
Gosh, you know what? We gotta keep striving, guys. We're gonna get there. Warning, I'm gonna come to both of you with more.
Absolutely looking forward to it. And we do have one comment from Nelson at PRTC, who says it's really data-driven CX solutions that are the only answer to add value and make AI the final destination for the industry. I might challenge that a little bit. I view AI not so much as a destination, but as an enabling tool on the journey. But 100%, the data is what's going to help us make those decisions and get us down that path.
Yep. Data only makes AI better. So you're right. It has to go together.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think we'll see if I can leave the team with another one of these fun reactions, get some confetti.
There you go.
That's amazing.
And on that note, I'll let everybody go. But thanks. This has been a wonderfully enlightening discussion for me, and I hope it was for the audience as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
David, great to hang out with you.
As always, it's my pleasure.
Great seeing you both.
Bye.